Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. I hope you have a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and I got a banger video for you guys as well. So, I saw the Dark Fae rotation the other month, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I saw that there was a lot of questions, a lot of interest behind how to beat each of the bosses. Not only the most difficult ones, but the ones in between too as well. There's a lot of requests for knowledge, and I thought that I would follow up this month since we're jumping into a new rotation to try to see if I can guide you guys along the way regarding not only the wave clears and how I handle it, but also with like champions that would help for the bosses themselves. And the first one that we're going to be dealing with this rotation is going to be Magma Dragon. So for the purposes of like difficulty, just to show you at some of the more harder stages, I'm going to be doing a lot of my content based off of the harder iterations, which is basically a scaled up version. But the concepts and pathways that we go about approaching this should roughly be about the same. You just maybe have to inflate, your survivability a little bit more, or your accuracy a little bit more to land the appropriate debuffs and whatnot. So I'm going to show you guys as various different ways that I could do it to try to see if we can give you guys the most robust options for yourself. But I'm going to explain the concepts and we'll get right into it. Okay. I'm going to go and let this run for right now so that we can get to the boss. I'll slow it down when we get to the second way so we can kind of organize having as much abilities there as well. But the choices that I picked so far were Duchess, of course, yes, very OP, very desired champion, one of the best to do it, right? Pythion, yes, another legendary, one of the best to do it. Yes, it's an area, a void epic, which may be very, very difficult to do it, but I'm going to give you guys some examples that will also help out with getting the same results you're looking for, but also utilizing champions that may be a little bit more accessible, okay? But the concept is that you see three of these champions, all three of them can res. Another thing that they're also pretty good with is their ability to heal and sustain through the damage, as well as their mitigation. So, in particular, I'm talking about like Duchess and Pythion. Right now, I got an area in there just for the flavor, since she's the most recently acquiesceable void that we had an event for, and I just recently acquired her at a peak potential of being able to do Sand Devil at 24. So if you haven't seen that video, go check that out. But the other two are kind of an interesting choice, and I'll explain why. Both Physics and Husk are very interesting in the sense that they provoke. And one of the things that this boss is susceptible to is provokes. So I kind of just slowed down the run here at stage 2 to give you guys an opportunity to see everything at full cooldowns. Everything is available. I'm going to open up with Physics. She is not booked, by the way, at all. Just for context purposes. She's not booked at all, but the main goal is to land this Provoke as much as possible. Now, because she's not there, and to be honest with you, the way that she was designed was initially to be fast and to be able to provide as much as she could from a Terminator reduction standpoint for Dark Fae. The same build that I'm using for that one is the same thing I'm using for this particular video right now. But the main concept is just beating down the boss and sustaining through it while keeping it provoked. And the reason why is we want to avoid this hex getting placed on the enemy team, or RNI team, excuse me. And the reason why is that it will ignore block damage, shield, and unkillable. So any type of mitigation that you have, including your own defense, this boss doesn't care whenever you have that hex buff on you. And there's going to be a way that we're going to play with it in mind, and there's going to be a way that we're going to play with it not being in mind, okay? But the main concept is just for us to avoid it as much as possible, provoking. If we can keep this boss pretty much provoked throughout most of the fights, then what you're going to end up seeing is right here, like that Provoke. That's where Husk comes in. His A1 has a small chance to do it, but it's still a chance nevertheless, and I believe he's a little bit more acquiesceable since he's an epic. But anyone who can keep uptime on the Provoke of the boss would be very, very ideal here. And then from there, it's just laying on your damage, which Husk is an enemy max HP hitter. I thought he would be like a great combination of being able to suit both roles. Like, he could slot in while we're waiting for our Visix to come in line. He's giving us that little extra oomph, right? Now, Visix did kick in here, so that gives us a little bit more of like, okay, we're chilling here. We're coasting. We're going through the process of beating him down. He's already less than 80%. So like, as long as we can rinse and repeat this throughout the course of our experience, we're in a pretty healthy spot. But right here, I have a feeling that unless Husk gets another land here, we're gonna have to experience the issue of Hex. Now Hex is in play. And it goes through block debuffs, just so you guys aware. So, like, even having, Python and Duchess already preemptively putting the block debuffs, it doesn't matter. It still goes through. Now, how do we deal with this? One way that I'm going to show you guys another alternative route as we go through this fight a little bit more, but I can also show you a little bit here, is just let the champion die. I mean, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of survivability in the first place, but we have 3 resers to get through this. So, this will affect the efficiency of it, and and, you know, the time may take a little bit longer, but I think for most people that are trying to get through this for the first time, it kind of really doesn't matter. And also, I don't know if you're noticing, but Provoke on a champion that doesn't have it will allow this to go on cooldown, which means, you know, eventually it'll fall off, which means that you've also worked around the mechanic, right? But playing with this in mind, I'm hoping that with everything going at play here, we'll see Vizix get killed here. So we can show you how, like, the bounce back of it all is, but it doesn't matter. She ended up reducing it anyways to a point where it didn't matter. That's like a great way to get around this, is that you have either you're playing with it in mind, which means that you have a couple of staple resers that would keep your team going while, you know, whoever has it just gets cooked, and then you just bounce back the team and you're back in action. Or you could play the Provoke route, where you're making sure this boss, even when these abilities are available, ain't doing nothing. You're not going to stop us from achieving the goal that we're looking for, which is basically, all right, this doesn't happen. Okay, so we had the def here. Aniri, for example, her revive on def immediately allows the champion to come back into play, and we're back in action, which is really, really good. She's actually, I didn't actually play with that in mind, but that's actually super ideal, because then, you know, Vizix dying allows her to jump back in action. So Aniri's actually kind of the gift that keeps on giving. It's really, really cool, actually. But to be honest with you, I was playing with the mindset that, okay, she dies, no passes or anything like that. We're actually gonna have to use a turn to bring the champion back up. These 3 champions, or for example, alternatives that we're going to introduce down the road, will also give you what you're looking for, right? I'm going to give you some ideal champions that may give you some Provoke, as well as some resers, and you could probably plug and play with whatever your champion pool is, and you could probably receive the exact same results. Now, keep in mind, I have used the bounce mechanic, where it's like I'm bouncing the targets of, or I'm bouncing the hex around, so like pretty much a beefy team, and then as one champion gets low, I get somebody to cleanse it, and they take it on for a little bit, and then I take somebody else to cleanse it, and they take us, basically like the hex shuffle is what I like to call it. That is one way you could do it. Is it as ideal? Potentially not, but I would say that allows the team to stay alive for full of time and they're doing their thing. And some examples of that would be like I used Doom Priest, if I can find her here, give me a second. Doom Priest, where at the beginning of her turn, she always cleanses and heals, so that's, you get a little bit of sustain, a little bit of a cleanse, but that forces on her. Okay, well, she can't rest, so I'd rather she holds on to it, whereas these two don't. So if she dies, we pick it back up, and we're still continuing the momentum, right? I've also thought about, in terms of like resers, someone that, to me, I consider like a mini Duchess, is like Rector's Wrath. She has not only the revive with the Veil, but she has a continuous heal, Veil, and then she heals whenever someone does have Veil. So, like, an alternative approach to something like a Duchess, maybe not with the speed lead, or you can put somebody else in there, but she does have the potential kit to do what you have to do with decreased attack. Maybe you can lean in that to a little bit more so you can sustain through the fight. Just to name a few options here. I want to talk to you guys about Provokes. I am personally sitting on some champions that I haven't fully developed yet that I would love to introduce for this particular type of fight, such as War Chief. I think he would be probably god tier for this in terms of like 100% uptime on Provoke. He has it on his A1 as well as his A3, so you could pretty much slap Vizix and Husk, what I have them two doing in that particular run, in the same spot for one. And then you could probably put a much more decent damage dealer, and then maybe a poison route if you want to go down that route. Now, I will say, if you paid attention to the boss mechanics, or if you read the breakdown on Magma, and it kind of says in his own description, Magma, HP burn champions are no bueno. So, sorry, Geo. You know, Geo's out of the picture here for this one. But you want to avoid those type of champions, but maybe you lean into other debuffs, like poison, for example. I mean, I've used Theodore, who, you know, boosts up the team, poison sensitivity. Maybe Frozen Banshee. When I was first doing the first couple runs of this many moons ago, I used my fully awakened Frozen Banshee, who just basically is all about poison sensitivity and just laying as many poisons as you can in there while trying to tank through the fight using your core team, right? The damage outlet is less relevant outside of avoiding HP burn. You can use enemy max HPs, like, you know, your Cold Heart or whoever you want to. But the main concept is just surviving through the fight, right? So survival, and then optimize your damage within the survivability. And the spank and tank route, where you have like extra mitigations with someone like Duchess or Python, definitely works. You can go the Provoke route, where it doesn't matter the fact that he has all these heavy hitting abilities. He's not going to use them. He's going to be defaulting to his regular base form ability, which is, you know, Brand with Weakness, attacks 1, decrease the target meter. And then he will ultimately try to aim for hex targets. But if the target is provoked, or if Cold Death was provoked, the one that provoked him is going to be the one he hits. So you can play around with him at Kinnick and Mine. So Provoke is very, very strong in this particular dungeon. And you see it goes as fast as 2 minutes and 9 minutes. And I took my time. I could probably speed tune this up and do some extra work, but just throwing what I had in there that's already kind of like developed for their own particular focuses has been enough for me. But if you are struggling with this, survival is the name of the game. You know, propose using some pretty tanky and fast cleanser slash resers so that you can bounce around the mechanics so that no matter who's taking it, they're able to resustain themselves up from the hit, or introduce maybe some provokes champions like Huss, for example, who can also lay in some extra damage with his enemy max HP. Another couple of champions that I'll probably introduce to you that I think may be a little underrated, and it's actually kind of surprising I'm leaning so heavily into one of the more difficult factions. You know, we talked about War Chiefs and Skinwalkers, but there's also Coronar, who I'm also sitting on, that has a provoke for all enemies for 1 turn duration, which is 100% here, right? That's one option you can use. And then let's break it down even lower. Gnarlhorn, for example, he has a provoke for an enemy, which allows him to also put an increased defense on him. That's actually another option that may be somewhat underrated if you have one of those laying around that you would like to invest into. He's really good in not only faction wars, but also in a scenario where provoke is pretty prevalent, like Magma Dragon. So Gnarlhorn would be a great opportunity for you to introduce there too as well. And if you pay attention to this, he doesn't get block damage or anything like that. He gets unkillable that on his A3 that you can maybe rotate and facilitate to as well. So you know, if this boss doesn't go through it, then that may be an alternative option, right? Block damage, unkillable, maybe not so much the unkillable, but at the very least, you'll get that provoke, which means that he's not doing all that extra damage. So at least lean into that A2, right? With that being said, the name of the game goes is just get your damage in where you can, but make sure that you can survive through it. And I think that's the most important aspect behind this. Recommend champions that could do it pretty consistently. For example, Black Knight, who has on his A1 at a 75% chance, which means that the uptime of this, as long as you meet the standard requirements of whatever the metrics are for him, and if you guys want, I'm going to go and pull this up for y'all so y'all can see it. It looks like, in terms of, depending on where you're at in the rotation, for Magma, whether that's in normal, the stats will vary, right? So you only need 75 accuracy to potentially land that provoke, right? Or if you go into the harder stages, like what we just did was hard 1, since this rotation just opened up, you need to have a minimum of 175. There you go, 80. 225 accuracy becomes a lot more important, right? So those are some good metrics to look at. I definitely recommend taking a look at this website. Hell Hades for Stage Tools is really, really useful for like understanding where you need to be at for base minimum requirements, or if you wanted to try the resistance route, that is an option, but it does get more difficult as you go along. So maybe leaning in towards the offensive aspect of some of your kits would probably be a little bit more ideal, and I think that will ultimately help you out as much as possible. But the name of the game is go for provoke and then lace in your damage wherever you can get it. The more efficient your provoke, the less you need to worry about other ones. So like if I had 100% provoker, maybe in aspect to, you know, like Black Knight, for example, who lands it on an A1 at 75%, maybe someone who does that a little bit more consistently will open and enable you to be able to do that. And keep in mind, throughout, I believe, the entire rotation 1, he is magic affinity, so force affinity champions also have that advantage over him. You may want to play with those like extra little mechanics in mind, so it'll definitely help you out. Anyways, I hope you guys like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, please do. It definitely helps us out. We're also live on Twitch, where we're going to be doing a lot of live action stuff, whether that's progressing through Doom Tower through my clear team, which I'll do a video on here in not too long from now, as well as other content that we may get into, maybe some experimental stuff that I'm getting into. Feel free to follow us at twitch.tv/SoulSaint with a 0 instead of an O. And then also join us on our Discord. You know, we always have an active conversation going on in our raid channels, where you can, you know, ask questions or maybe flex a little bit, you know, be healthy about it, you know, introduce yourself, get to know us a little bit. But at the most part, it's all fun and games, and I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. And always remember, stay ascended.